The Art of Illusion, Genjutsu versus Kaizen Saimin. Quite frankly, they are both broken abilities, using illusions to change your opponent's perception of reality. It can be a game changer in the middle of a battle. But which one do you find superior? Because they are both extremely tricky to get around. However, in my opinion, one does outscale the other, not because of power, but because it doesn't have any drawbacks.
Shinobi battle skill number 2, the illusion jutsu. Sakura studied it in class, but she still couldn't see it coming.
So we know Genjutsu is the art of illusions, and the deception is mainly in your mind, not your reality, except in very, very rare cases, but we'll discuss that later. The core mechanic Genjutsu relies on is controlling the 5 senses. So a shinobi will use their own chakra to manipulate the chakra flowing through the victim's cranial nerves. By seizing control of this internal network, the user forces the opponent to perceive things that are not actually happening. Now, something I want to clear up before we get too far. You don't need to have chakra for Genjutsu to work on you. Chakra is more like the tool that the shinobi is using to cast Genjutsu, but the receiver of the Genjutsu, even though the chakra is using your brain like a tunnel to get access, it doesn't actually need the chakra in your body. Once it has access to your biology and has control over your 5 senses, you are now under Genjutsu. Throughout the series, we see Genjutsu used in a varying amount of ways. At the baseline level, we see things like simple tactical misdirection, which can cause an opponent to misjudge distances, or get trapped walking in circles. Or you can hide traps, or see duplicate images, even put people to sleep. But as the series scales up, the varying levels of Genjutsu become extremely powerful. Now, the elite Genjutsu is what I want to concentrate on, because I believe in a fair conversation involving Genjutsu and Kyoka Suigetsu, this is where we need to start at. For example, some of the most elite Genjutsu in Naruto would be ninja arts like Jiraiya's Toad Confrontation Chant, a rare sound-based illusion using Sage Mode. Instead of requiring eye contact, it uses acoustic waves to attack the auditory nerves. Once the song reaches the target's ears, it completely paralyzes their mind and binds them inside a spiritual water barrier. And once you're inside that water barrier, you're pretty much done. It's a devastating Genjutsu that also looks amazing. Then there's Tsukuyomi, Itachi Uchiha's signature ability. It takes sensory manipulation to the next level. It requires direct eye contact though, but once caught, the victim is trapped in a domain where Itachi, he can make 3 seconds feel like 72 hours of non-stop psychological torment. Remember what happened to Kakashi? It shatters the victim's mind while their physical body remains entirely untouched. And then you have the other Mangekyo Sharingan abilities like Izanagi and Izanami. Izanagi allows the user to apply Genjutsu to reality, and for a brief window, any damage, injury, or even death inflicted on the user is cast away as a mere illusion, turning a fatal mistake into a clean slate at the cost of blinding one eye. And then you have Izanami, the countermeasure. It traps the target's mind in an infinite looping sequence of physical sensations based on shared moments, forcing them to accept their true destiny to break free. We saw Itachi cast this on Kabuto during their fight, but you also go blind in one eye. And then you have the beloved Shisui's ability, Kotoamatsukami, extremely powerful. You can enter the mind of your opponent, give them phantom experiences, rewriting their memory, but is limited to once per decade. And then finally, there is the ultimate Genjutsu, Infinite Tsukuyomi. By reflecting the power of the Rinne Sharingan off the surface of the moon, this ability casts a blanket of light across the entire planet. It immediately plunges every living being into a permanent, individualized dream world. But it has a massive drawback though. Infinite Tsukuyomi is not something you're pulling out of your back pocket in a battle. It requires a complex level of planning. That's why Madara's plan was called Eye of the Moon plan, because there were so many steps needed to get Infinite Tsukuyomi to work. But when you have something so powerful like Genjutsu, you have to have drawbacks, and its drawbacks are its biggest downfall.
Kakashi, do you feel it?
Yeah, a Genjutsu.
Release!
First, it's highly demanding. Maintaining high-level illusions in Naruto requires continuous focus and a steady investment of chakra. Second, the barrier to access incredibly high and the most devastating Genjutsu techniques are locked behind rare genetic traits like the Sharingan, or require a massive amount of preparation and a specific environment to pull it off. Unless you have Hashirama cells, techniques like the Kotoamatsukami can only be deployed once every decade. Also, Genjutsu can be simply countered in very arbitrary ways, such as closing your eyes or looking at Itachi's feet, or inflicting pain upon yourself. I believe Deidara trained his left eye to counter Genjutsu, and then you have literal jutsu in Naruto to release the effects of Genjutsu like the illusion releasing technique. Now, of course, at the highest levels, these techniques might not work, but that's also dependent upon the level of the shinobi. When you look at the sheer amount of effort, preparation, and specialized biology required for ninja to pull off these illusions, whether it's Sage Mode, or having a Kekkei Genkai, or using the moon as a mirror, the resource gap between Naruto and Bleach is just too astronomical.
Here's what power is. I'll give you an example.
Aizen Zanpakuto means mirror flower, water moon. The reflection you see of the flower in the mirror or the moon in the water is something you can't touch. Kyoka Suigetsu doesn't have any of the drawbacks of Genjutsu. What most shinobi would have to sacrifice an eye to do for limited time, Kyoka Suigetsu's illusion is an absolute shackle to your reality and everyday life that you cannot just simply break in some arbitrary way. Most shinobi in Naruto would pass out from trying to maintain what Aizen does with Kyoka Suigetsu. Aizen doesn't just cast an illusion, he puts multiple Shinigami under a false reality, then lives among them within that reality while still manipulating them, and then he can turn this illusion off from Kyoka Suigetsu whenever he wants. Once you have seen his blade, you are permanently under his spell.
At what time did you think that I wasn't using my Kyoka Suigetsu?
You cannot simply just replicate what Kyoka Suigetsu does. In fact, the scientific elite of Bleach can't replicate what Kyoka Suigetsu does, but you know what they can replicate?
Arankaru, Arankaru, Arankaru. Espada.
And just like Tsukuyomi, Mayuri's superhuman drug forces the victim's perception of time to stretch out so drastically that 1 second feels like an entire century. Or like in Spirits Are Forever With You, you can take a higher dosage and live out centuries of time in your mind, running fades against the Goatee 13 and getting stronger, while your body in reality is just catatonic, which is what Soya Asashiro is doing. Mayuri can do what Itachi does, just with the pill. And if you think about it, Mayuri could have had Madara's Eye of the Moon plan completely wrapped up in a single afternoon. All he would need to do is spike the Alliance Punch Bowl with a few drops of the superhuman drug and walk away. Which brings us back to why I look at Kyoka Suigetsu as the top of the mountain. Now, which one do you find superior? I do prefer Kyoka Suigetsu. I think Genjutsu is still extremely powerful, but it has just too many limitations holding it back in my opinion. I find that unless you're cut from the upper echelon of talent within the world of Naruto, the resource cost of using Genjutsu and the gamble that you take when you do use it is just too costly. Even with a Kekkei Genkai and a Dojutsu ability like Izanami and Izanagi that can alter reality or change fate, the trade-off of losing eyesight or going blind and having your Sharingan sealed, I mean, yeah, the ability is extremely broken, but that cost and the trade-off, your career as a ninja is done. Aizen, on the other hand, Kyoka Suigetsu and Kaizen Saimin, they just don't have enough going on to be seen as a detriment in battle. It's almost like a no-brainer that that's the illusion technique that you should go with. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the flash of Genjutsu. Kaizen Saimin, it's like Khabib when he was at the height of UFC. He's boring, it's not a lot going on, but it's effective and it's extremely hard to get out of. And that's how I view Kyoka Suigetsu. It's not going to have the flash that Genjutsu does, but outside of Aizen needing to use his own self as a body double in very rare scenarios, there's really no drawback to deploying Kaizen Saimin to get your way in either battle or just manipulating people around you so you can always have the advantage. But that's all for me. Even though I talk a lot about Bleach, I also enjoy Naruto as well. I saw this conversation trending and I just wanted to put my 2 cents in and also have a fun discussion with you guys as well too. If you guys like talking about anime, manga, once again, I am Zaku Zealot. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on alerts, and let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below. Peace out till next time.